Thanks. I'm Jed.
And I'm Sophia.
So yeah, what Pete said is true. We're the makers of the game you're going to get to see a demo of really soon. So we're coaches, we're group facilitators, and we're the creators of Cozy Juicy Real. And we're going to start with 3 questions for you. We want you to put your answers in the chat, okay? So just consider if your answer is yes for any of these 3 questions, okay? So the first question is, have you ever dressed up for Halloween or as Father Christmas or maybe for a festival? That's the first question. Second question is, have you ever been naked in a spa or a nudist beach? And yes. And the third question is, have you ever gone to a sporting event and screamed your lungs out for your favorite team? Yes. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Appreciating the interaction here.
So let's consider today. I'm curious to know, would you consider dressing up in a costume and walking around your local grocery store today? Would you log into a Zoom team meeting and start screaming at the top of your lungs on that? Unmuted, of course. And how about right now? What if we all got naked?
Interesting idea.
Lots of no's. Lots of no's. So it would be weird. And for me too. And we're just curious, like, what's going on here? And what in the first 3 scenarios are these scenarios okay and not in the second 3 scenarios?
Yeah, so when you're screaming at a football match, right, or you're dressing up for Halloween, what makes that okay? Whereas in another context, it's not okay. So we started to pull these apart. We recognize that 3 things are going on, right? So there's a setting where certain things are okay and certain things are a little weird. There's a place, there's a date, or there's a community or a country, and there's some kind of setting that made this normal, this behavior normal. And then the second thing is there's a unique set of rules in those situations. Each of those scenarios come up with a set of rules and agreements where it's okay to dress up this time of the year. It's okay to be naked there. And it's okay to yell for your team in certain contexts. Okay, so that's the second one. And then the third one, they're rituals, all right? All 3 scenarios have happened regularly enough that they've become a norm and they've fostered a culture.
So you might be asking, what has it got to do with gamification? Well, we believe gamification holds these 3 fundamentals too. Games offer a setting, whether it's a video game, a board game, facilitated session, an online game, there's always a space for these people to come together. And games also define a set of rules, which give people permission to show up in a way that they might not usually show up. They provide a structure and they get everybody on the same page. And when a game is well designed, it also offers people a journey. It takes them on a journey, almost like crossing a border into a different country, where the game world becomes the new norm. And when someone's familiar with that game, it can also become part of the culture, which is so cool. That we can shift cultures, shift the rules that we live by just by playing games.
So about 5 years ago, we started this project by asking questions. And those first couple of questions were, could we gamify connection, human connection? And could we consistently create meaningful conversations, part of what makes life really interesting and juicy? So why were we asking those questions? Well, let's see if you resonate with this hypothetical scenario. This is a pre-COVID or post-COVID world, but let us know if this scenario resonates with you, okay? Put so in the chat. So let's just say in this scenario, you've been busy and you haven't spent time with your friends for a while. And finally, your friend group gets some time to meet up, and you get meet up for dinner. And you might talk about during dinner the latest Netflix series that you've been watching, or maybe your friend Kate is doing a new exercise regime and Dave is talking about how his new job is going, okay? So for the most part, what happens in these scenarios is you end up talking in pairs and you don't get to really hear from everyone.
It's with surface level kind of conversations, not always.
Yeah.
Often.
Yeah. So that's what we were hearing from people during these interviews, and also we were finding in our own lives. So after a night like that, how fulfilled do you feel? How much better do you know the people in your lives? And will you remember a conversation like that a week from then, a month from then, a year from then, or even the next day? So the sad truth is that over the years, we've learned that these kind of conversations, that they happen really commonplace. And we're not alone in those happening in our lives too.
So we started to ask people, lots of people, what makes people feel connected? What makes you feel connected? And what is it that makes some conversations memorable and impactful compared to others? And we learned two really important things from those early interviews, that when people think about conversations that matter, the kind that bring people together, the kind they ponder, they think about, reflect on, there's always sharing from everyone. And it's usually something meaningful that might be a bit vulnerable and takes some courage. And often, not always, but often there's elements of humor and a bit of play. They're the kinds of conversations that people said they really enjoyed and they would remember for a long time. We recognize that enjoyable and meaningful conversations include that spectrum from sincere to silly, like a balance of deep and light. And so we built Cozy Juicy Real on those fundamentals to create a culture of bold conversations, playful humor connection. And we've done that by incentivizing things like play, sharing what's meaningful, and encouragement.
Okay, so you're probably queued up. The game we've made is about meaningful conversation, meaningful connection. And people call it the antidote to small talk. But it started really simple, like most games start, because I'm sure many of you have developed your own games, with a really simple prototype on an A4 piece of paper and a stack of cutout cards and just questions. And we built the prototype around those two elements, right? Meaningful sharing and playfulness. And over the years that we played it with friends and family, because as you know, they're usually the victims of developing games, we traveled with it, right? And we played it with lots of different people, lots of different backgrounds, people from different cultures, different socioeconomic groups. And every time we played it, our role was just to watch and listen and see what worked and what didn't. And in those early days, a lot didn't work. It was awkward and it was slow, and it wasn't a fun game yet. But we just continued to watch and we just continued to listen. We kept the project moving forward. We kept playing it. People would say, "Oh, I love this part," and they would say, "Oh, I hate that part. Please take that out." At times, it was painstakingly slow. We'd take something out, and then 5 months later, we'd add it back in. But after about 4 years, this was a part-time project, the game reached a point where the feedback became less and less significant. And people started to ask at a certain point, can we buy a copy? And we knew that was a cue to us that we should take this seriously, quit our day jobs, and this would be what we'd start focusing on.
Yeah, and around this time we started playing with larger groups like university students, foster kids. Companies started us to do team building events. And we realized that this is a really useful tool for teams and communities at large. And then, of course, March happened. Like many others, we realized we had to pivot and we took the game online. People were asking us to bring it online. And we found a way, which, by the way, you're invited to play on Friday. It's the after party, so please join us. And for us, making Cozy Juicy Real virtual experience has been so important. Many of us are working and interacting remotely. Disconnection has become a huge issue. We've all lost those random chats by the cooler at work, or meeting a friend over coffee, the random chats after yoga class, and people are desperately seeking ways to connect virtually on a personal level. So we've created 4 different types of games that we play online: team bonding, networking version, one for friends and family, and an open game for strangers to kind of connect and just get to know new people. So yeah, people often tell us that even though they're playing on Zoom, they forget that the screen's between them, which is really lovely to hear. It's bringing people together on a personal level, which is awesome.
So we're going to do a screen share here, and we're going to show you what the game board looks like. And first, we're going to do what Pete said, just talk a little bit about the outcomes that we've seen really briefly. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and you're going to be, yes, just a second. Okay, so you should be looking at a world. So let's go over to the feedback first. And so what we do is at the beginning of every event, we ask people a really simple question. We ask them basically, how are you doing today? And we ask them on Moreau, it's where the game is hosted, to just drag these little dots and answer 3 simple questions. How happy or sad are you feeling? How nervous or calm are you feeling? And how disconnected or connected are you feeling? So at the beginning of every event, they just drag these little blue dots on and they show where they are personally. And then we do the same thing in the end, and we do this because we really want to see if we're accomplishing what we're setting out to accomplish, which is happiness, calm, and connection with groups of people. At the end of the event, this is kind of what we see. So there's a shift from the beginning to the end. And so we just did a screenshot from 3 different events that we've been at. One from the Vienna Institute of Technology. This is what you're looking at now. This is Chat Fuel, a tech company based in Russia, Mexico, and India. So you can see how before the game and after the game, we're seeing what we want to see. So that makes us really happy. And the last thing we're going to show you is Distributed 2020, which is a big conference that was in October, based on Moreau about remote work. And so people are feeling happier, calmer, and more connected. And what we're finding, we did the math and put all the data into a spreadsheet, and what we found is that people are 15% happier, 22% calmer, and 36% more connected after playing the game. So when we found that out, we crunched the numbers, we were really happy about that. So let's zoom in to the board and just give you a really high level of what the game is about. And like Pete was saying, the after party of Gamification Europe is this Friday. He's put the link into the chat. So sign up, join us. You can actually play and get a real experience for the game. But at a high level, what the game is it's a series of questions and conversations that walk you organically and naturally from the kind of get to know you conversations that we're used to getting to know somebody on a level where you actually can learn a bit about them and share a bit about yourself. And it's a conversation you might remember much later. So you start like you would in the real world with cozy questions. These are like get to know you questions. Everybody answers a cozy question. And then if you want more points, you can work your way up to juicy questions, which are a little bit juicier. And then as you work your way around the board, you can eventually pick up real questions, which are real, and share a little bit more about yourself as you move around the board. So it happens naturally, it happens organically. Everything's about choice, so you can pick up cards that you want to. And then we've got the element of play built in a big way through these random cards and these lightning cards, which are challenges and activities that happen throughout the game. So that's how the main game works. And if you come on Friday, you'll see more about it and get to experience it. But we've got these purple cards as well, which are part of the secret sauce of the game. And these are like a way to interact with other players. So for example, if we were playing and you're playing with Sophia and I, and Sophia shared something you really like, you could give her a high five card. It's like giving somebody an affirmation, right? And it's surprising how much you actually feel. You're just receiving a card, but you can feel that affirmation. The same thing with a courage card. If somebody shares something that maybe took a little bit of courage to share, you can give them a courage card to recognize that they did that, and they get a few points for that. And that's how you win the game. You can ask questions using these purple cards, and you can ask people who you're playing with how they might answer a question that was just answered. So we're getting close to the end of time, and so we'll start to wrap it up there. But I think that if you have the chance to come and play, you'll see what we're going to do is put people into breakout rooms of 4 or 5 people, yeah. And after the event, you'll get to recognize the difference for yourself of that happiness, calm, and connected spectrum. So we're going to stop screen sharing right now. I think the talk is going to end in a minute, but we're going to head to the coffee lounge. So if anybody's any questions, we'd love to meet you and chat. And I think we'll end it there.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jed and Sophia. You packed a lot of information into 15 minutes there.
That was tough.
Yeah, did we talk about that?
You got it right. You got it spot on.
Great.
There's going to be a few questions in the Q&A.
Okay.
We don't really have time to answer them live, but feel free to answer them in the chat. And that does remind me that as well as attending Jed and Sophia's, the after party hosted by them for us, because it'll be a great way to build extra connections within this community. Yeah, I'm really loving the fact that we're able to do that. There is a free copy, signed paperback copy of Toby Beresford's book, Infinite Gamification, from yesterday. I forgot to mention there's a competition for it today. I get to choose who's going to win it, and I'm going to choose that based on the most popular Q&A question, which at the moment Lena is winning with 11 votes for a question earlier today. So that's your challenge to beat on the Q&A voting. Okay, thank you very much, Jed and Sophia. A virtual round of applause in the chat, please, from everyone.